And so maybe I'll just, start off by saying, for the benefit of viewers that are coming to this question fresh, that the replication crisis is this part when you run the same study that's been found before and you can't find the finding again. So it's a crisis in two ways. One is because it highlights that many early studies reported these false positives, often because there was a pressure to publish. So the effects weren't real and they kind of massaged the data to make them seem significant. But it's also a crisis because sometimes we have this idea that effects are universal, that should be true everywhere, but they're actually not true everywhere. They're moderated by culture. And this is only a crisis if you have this idea that effects are falsely universal. Okay, over to you, Olivia.
Yeah, well, I think bouncing off that, the replication crisis, I don't know, like I can't speak to if it's had any lingering negative impacts on Indigenous peoples or Indigenous psychology in any way. But I think actually it has highlighted to me that this idea that we aren't really, like, it's not, we're not uncovering universal truths in psychology. Yeah. We're studying things within specific contexts and specific cultures and with specific groups of people and things, and that isn't always going to be replicable, but it's not meant to be, and it's not surprising that it's not. And so I learned from my psychology degree, probably the number one thing was you can't ever really know anything, but there's always gray areas and there's always nuance, and that's all. I think also what I've always been taught as like growing up from my family and my community is that there's like, you kind of if you ever try and like big note yourself and pretend that you know everything, you'll quickly get shut down, because there is always nuance to a situation. And so I think the replication crisis has actually, for some people, it made them it's made like them go harder on, well, like, you know, we need to pre-register, so that's where you say exactly what you're going to do, and sort of publish that in a semi-public way, or in a public way actually once you publish, but in a public way to say, well, I thought X, Y, and Z was going to happen before I ran the study, and then it is like what actually happened. So leaning really hard on that, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but also leaning really hard on like statistics having to be done a certain way, and reporting having to be done a certain way. But I think the other side of things is that some people have sort of started to accept that, you know, maybe what we're doing isn't as sort of universal truth, objective science, hard science as we think it is. Maybe it is more culturally bound and context specific, and that just needs to factor into the way that we approach our science and the way that we tell the stories around our science.